when we ask advice to people that didn't have a solution, but found a way to manage that solution in a way that was sustainable for them, but still doesn't bring them to the fact of
how do we really form a family? What is a family? What is a relationship? What does it mean for us? Because I think it would be unfair for us to look at the surface there and compare that to the English or to the Italian. If we go deeper, we will have more resources to be able to build up our argument. So if you look at your culture, where your parents are coming from, how do you explain how people live together as a couple? Because I think this will become very important, that if we're to extend the conversation, because there are a lot of dynamics in it.
African households in particular, I want to say, have been taking pride in being in a relationship that simply isn't healthy for the child. You know, your parent, there's no love in the household. You can't hear "I love you" from your dad. You can't hear your dad isn't there because he's too stressed at work or. Dole Chigborogu. I'm a dating coach. I help men find their masculinity and understand female nature. I'm married, and again, my journey is simply about how I got here and teaching others how to do the same.
All right, that is interesting. I like that part, how you got here. All right, so tell me something. Where are you coming from? Because now you have got it here, meaning you are in a destination, you are in a journey, and I sort of like that a lot. Tell me, where are you coming from?
Yeah, sure. So both my parents, were born and grew up in Nigeria. My dad migrated to Italy at the age of 2022, I think, roughly that. And yeah, he grew up there and had me when he was 30. And he met my biological mother in Italy. So I grew up, I spent most of my childhood years in Italy, yeah.
So what do you remember of your stay in Italy then? Because since I'm in Italy here, so I think it's a good, so we have a kind of a connection, apart from the fact that we're also connected from our roots, because you're coming from Nigeria just like me. That is something really good. I'm talking to a brother. But have you lived here in Italy in your early years? What do you remember of Italy?
Yeah, sure. So I'd say the food, man. The food is amazing. I came back a few times as well. I had the interesting because I had a rough. So my initial family scenario was a bit of a difficult one. My biological mother and my dad didn't get along too well. So my mother ended up leaving the house, and my dad stepped up and took care of me and my siblings. Yeah, so my parents didn't get along too well. My dad remarried, and when he remarried, that's when he met my mom, who I call my mom now. And yeah, the relationship was a building after building, but I saw them thrive and become what they are today. And they started counseling people, which is what inspired me to start teaching people what I got to see.
This is very interesting. Because now we understand the background, we understand also why you are doing what you are doing, which is actually, I think, is the most important part when people try to understand the person behind the brand. No, that people don't just jump into doing what they are doing. Many people don't understand that. I sort of quite say here that for you to give a counsel, you need to know what you're talking about. For you to be a master of life, you need to have lived. Because now you're going to be talking about life, but you don't read about life, you live life, no? So now we can see what is the motive behind why you are doing what you are doing. You decide to help people, perhaps because you understand what it means to have a relationship that is not good, correct? So you want people to have a good relationship, is that correct?
Correct.
All right. Now,
with themselves first, always.
Put themselves first. What do you mean by that? Explain.
So what I mean by that is a lot of people get into relationships broken, and what I teach people is actually how to fix you first, so that your partner doesn't have to deal with your crap. Because if you don't deal with you first, then it's two people now having to deal with your crap. So um, I think the relationship with yourself first is something that it's a it's a first generational talk, because I think one of the things I noticed about my parents, for instance, is their relationship was unusual. And what made it unusual is accountability. They're not scared to say I'm in the wrong. They're not scared to say, do you know what? I could have done this better. I could have done this differently, and I didn't. And I'm sorry for that. And when I look at relationships, or when I speak to a lot of clients, again, that lack of accountability seems to be a very big issue.
Now, give me a picture of the people that you are working with, in terms of maybe the demography, the audience, the people. Are you mostly talking about the African diaspora, in this case, maybe people of African descent that are living in the UK, or are you working with just any type of people?
I mainly work with men. I mainly work with men because I believe those are the people I'm able to help best. And one of the reasons behind it is I'm just sharing what I did, to get to where I got to, which is, I guess, the best teacher's experience, like you said earlier. I think on top of experience, gaining the knowledge of people that have gone ahead of you makes your journey a lot more easier than it could be, because, you're learning from people's mistakes on top of yours. So it gives you, that extra boost you need. Just to be quite particular, there are some times where, the couples agreed to bring their partner and just have a discussion, and I'm being happy to help both.
All right. Why is it important to cater for men in relationship, or the men's side of relationship? Why do you think that is important today in the world that we are living in?
There's a saying that says, great men create good times create weak men, and weak men create bad times. I believe part of the reasons why we're in bad times now is because there's an epidemic of weak men, and men that are struggling to admit that they're weak. So they will act like they're strong until it really gets down to it, and you just can't fulfill your duty. And rightly so, because no one's taught you how to be strong. Because, prior to that, maybe there was good times, maybe the times weren't as hard, or it's a bit of a tricky one, actually. I think if you look at the epidemic of suicide rates amongst men, it's only getting worse, and we are dealing with a society that just doesn't know what to do with it. So I guess, as someone that was to express myself, I decided to step up and say, you know what, guys, this is how I fixed it. So hope this helps.
Mm. And where do you think that is coming from? The idea that men are now weak, and they are not even opening up to that, and that is leading to a kind of a generational problem, in that what happened to them sort of trickle down to the people that are looking up to them, and that is a long process going on where a lot of people have to suffer from that. But where is that coming from? Is it a cultural thing? Is it a societal thing? Is it something that is just of the time? Or where do we trace that to?
I think it traced back to, I believe men are natural problem fixers, right? And when we don't fix a problem, then someone else has to fix it on our behalf. Growing up and seeing a divorce isn't something a child should see, but I got to see it. And I'm glad I got to see it, because I wouldn't be who I am today. But did that break me? Yes, absolutely. And what broke me wasn't the divorce, it was the relationship prior to that. And which leads us to the conception that a lot of African households in particular, I want to say, have in taking pride in being in a relationship that simply isn't healthy for the child. Your parent, there's no love in the household. You can't hear "I love you" from your dad. You can't hear uh, your dad isn't there because he's too stressed at work, or he doesn't know how to navigate his emotions. So you're now left to figure out some sort of new tactic that you can now utilize to go out there and do something different. I think where I'm, again, privileged and lucky is my dad was transparent with me. And he didn't just treat me as, this wasn't just a father to son relationship where he was like, hey, I'm the authority, you listen to me. He was like, I don't know what I'm doing sometimes. Right. And he's like, do you know what to do here? It's like his humility was like, wow. So he's also trying to figure it out. Let me help and see what I can do. And I guess that's what made him who I am today, his humility and his ability to just be honest. And I think a lot of men, because we think we should know things, that's exactly what breaks us, because we end up not fixing the very thing because we assume that we should know, but we don't know. And it's okay to say you don't know. But we are told that it's not. And it's because we don't know how to navigate our emotions, and no one teaches us that.
Mm-hmm. That is important. No one teaches us that. But where really are we supposed to learn this ability to be able to navigate the complexity of life? Because any person that said that life is simple hasn't lived at all. Life is not simple. There is nothing simple about it. For the fact that you even have to put up with somebody who is completely different from you, you come to understand how complex life is. Even to live with yourself is challenging. There is a quote, I think, who said, even to live is an act of courage, which is to say that it is not easy. So I think we need a bit of understanding to understand each other, to understand that this is not easy. The game that we are in, talking of relationship, is not easy. And if there is a kind of a healthy conversation that is not always leading to pointing, I think it make it easy, for the other people to also communicate. But in a situation where maybe you have one always try to point accusing figure, the other one will recoil on, because one, it's a delicate balance. No, it's not easy. One, you could just break up everything. You could just be fighting all the time. But what does that lead to? You see? So that is why I think it is not very easy to deal with the relationship. Maybe I'm wrong, but that is how I am seeing it. But actually, where I want to go here is because you were paying attention to the African community, the Nigeria community, if we want to put it like that. I'm trying to see if there is anything that we can see as a comparison between the Nigerian African diaspora community and the other people that we are living with. Because I think this is becoming very important now in that in the social context that we live, we are not alone. Because we are not alone, we share the space with other people. It is impossible for us not to learn. So sometimes we learn, even if we were just living in the forest is still an ecosystem. In that there are living things all around you. That is why you see, for example, in the story of Tarzan need to look like the other animal because that is where he lives. But the comportment of the animal affect his behavior. And this story again will also be portrayed in the interesting book, the Robinson Crusoe, no? And of course, this is a story that is very common for us, that where we live condition what we do. So the question therefore is, what comparison can we make between the African diaspora community, the family, and where they live? Can we say anything there?
I got to experience both the UK culture and the Italian culture. And there's definitely a massive difference between the both of them by far. And also between the African diaspora and the Italian culture, African diaspora and the UK culture, there's also difference there. The comparison I'd say is out of all of them, I genuinely would believe that the Italian dynamic is probably one of the healthiest I've seen. And the reason why I say that is because I remember being, again, I was actually discussing this with one of my clients earlier, but if I was in Italy, I probably wouldn't have a job because the dynamic of the family is such a strong um, such a strong principle that they carry with pride. They don't just want family, they integrate family, they make sure that family is well intertwined. Now, when I look at the African diaspora, it's definitely right behind it because our culture teaches us how to support each other and be there for each other. But at the same time, I don't know if you noticed what I said, but I said earlier on Nigerians, and then I said Ghanaians. It's like I think my generation doesn't have that at all because my wife is Ghanaian, for instance. So I don't, but I had to teach my parents that she's Ghanaian, she's fine. She's not this weird human being. She's fine, right? So it's like I think when it comes to the segregation, I think we're united within each other to a certain extent. But I think if we were to be united as a continent, the power that comes behind that would be almost it would be scary. And this is the thing. I done my research. I know that, especially when it comes to the Nigerian culture, one of the reasons why we came together was actually because we didn't get along in the first place. So the British united us because they knew that we wouldn't get along. So I think if we were actually to maybe find a way, because I'm Igbo and there's the whole, Biafra war and whatnot that's going on back home at the moment. In fact, it's quite heavy at the moment, if anything. And I think it's sad because we're fighting amongst each other instead of finding strengths in order to elevate ourselves to higher places. But again, it's a complete different discussion. But what I would say is, if we were to look at most of these other places that we're at in the African diaspora, what they have is they're established within themselves when it comes to the Italians. The only problem I say the Italians have there, there's a lot of racism. And in the UK, which I didn't really discuss, I'd say, from what I've seen anyway, I'm actually in Kent, which has brought to me a very different aspect of the UK culture, because here in Kent, they're very family orientated. But when I grew up in Croydon, there was a lot of single parenthood. There was a lot of, difficult dynamics and households. And yeah, it's I guess it's subjective to a certain extent. But if I could compare it all, I'd say, I guess this gives you like a fair overview. But I think that what the clear takeaway is, I think as Africans, we need to unite. And until we unite, we're going to carry on struggling.
All right. Thank you so much for that. I think really you are in a triangle of event or a place to be able to see life from different perspectives than many other people. Than if you were just an English boy, an English man, or an Italian man, or an African man. Now you have all three. So would make you richer. Would mean that you have more resources at your disposal. And when you look at Africa, for example, or when you look at Nigeria, we would not be fair to just use the experience that we see at the surface there to judge what is the Nigerian reality. Nigeria is much deeper than that. In that, we could look at the Igbo, for example, the Igbo culture. That is far deeper than the construct of Nigeria, no? Because the construct of Nigeria is a very young thing. It's very small. The experience is just like this. It's a small dot. Whereas if you enter into the complex entity called Nigeria, you see that these are dated thousands of years, no? You enter into the Igbo culture, for example, or you enter into the Hausa culture, or you enter into the Esan, the Edo culture, or the Yoruba culture. These are people that have been existing for thousands of years. Now, what does that mean? What it means is that because they've been existing for thousands of years, they have learned how to deal with issue that Nigeria hasn't dealt with. As a country, we are still very young. We are like a boy of yesterday. That is, of course, compared to Igbo, Yoruba, Hausa, this different entity. So when we say, let's compare it to our life, I'm looking at it from that. Now, we're talking of culture, because there is really no Nigerian culture as it is, no? because we haven't
No.
formed enough. We need to grow. We haven't grown enough. We haven't made enough experience yet. We are still very young. But there is Igbo culture, there is Hausa culture, there is the Ashanti culture, there is the Esan culture, there is the Edo culture. I think we need to go there to be able to understand the complexity that we're talking about here. In that, how do we really form a family? What is a family? What is a relationship? What does it mean for us? Because I think it would be unfair for us to look at the surface there and compare that to the English or to the Italian. If we go deeper, we will have more resources to be able to build up our argument. So if you look at your culture, where your parents are coming from, how do you explain how people live together as a couple? Because I think this will become very important, that if we were to extend the conversation, because there are a lot of dynamics in it. Okay, if you take up the book, Things Fall Apart, you see, Chinua Achebe were referring to one of the evil that have happened to us, that a knife is split in the middle of us, so we are falling apart. So I don't want to start from the falling apart. I want to start from the before. What is the thing that is holding us together? What is that culture that we want to refer to? Within that culture, what is the family? What is the role of the family? So that helps us to understand when we say a man is broken, it makes sense now because we have something to compare it to. So in this sense, how do you make the comparison between your European, Italian way of life that you have learned and the African way of life that you have known or your parents have taught you? Because I don't know how much you have grown up in Africa, but at least through your conversation with your father, you know something from where he's coming from. That is where I want to go.
Yeah. So with the way I understand that the African culture, let me just say Nigerian culture or Igbo culture. Let me just make it specific. So with the Igbo culture, I'd say from what my dad's taught me, there's a lot of unity. There's definitely a lot of, and there's unity through struggle. Like you're going to be there for your brother, you're going to take care of your sister, you're going to take care of whoever needs to be taken care of. In the morning, you're gonna have to work hard. You're gonna have to go to the fountain to pick up the water, get back and clean up the house and take it to school. I've heard that story 300 times. So there's definitely a lot of unity in the struggle, and I think it allows you to appreciate the fact that we have grit, we have resilience, we know what it's like to survive when you have nothing and still smile and still be happy. Now, in regards to the role of the husband in the house, he's the man of the house, he's the leader, he's the guide, he's the director, let's call it that. And the woman is the partner, assistant that's going to help and aid in the dynamics of the household. So I like to simplify things. So the husband is the director and the wife is the manager. So that the manager makes sure that everything is sort of running smoothly. The director gives the ultimate guidance. So that's the best way to put it. So in that perspective, I think on paper it looks great, but the actual implementation is what we need to start looking at. Yeah.
All right. Thank you for that. And I think we'd like to stay there for some time. Because when we know our foundation, anything we can build, it will be solid.
Yes.
All right. I happen to have grown up in a village, and this gave me a very solid foundation about my culture. I'm coming from the south of Nigeria, from Asam to be precisely. So I've happened to see this unity that you are talking about. I didn't read it in a book. I see it. I saw it. But there is a threat to that now. So that what Chinua Achebe said in his book is evident, is true. There is a fight to destroy that unity, to destroy that center, that nucleus that make up the family. Of course, we can even see it also here in the West. Of course, maybe that is a different story. There is something the Igbo people call Igbo Umuna, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is a philosophy that is also very strong among the Yoruba people, among the Esan people. Growing up in Esan, I remember, for example, there was a time somebody wanted to build a house. Oh, by the way, land become a property of everybody. All of us are part of it, no? Not really a property, it's part of who you are. We don't used to sell land. Okay, somebody might say, is that relevant to what we are talking about? In African context, everything is connected to everything. There is no single argument that is just treated apart because you're talking about family. If we take away the land, the family doesn't exist. So everything is connected to everything. That is why I'm sort of going to that area. So somebody want to build a house. It's not really on you alone to build a house. I'm talking of what I've seen. I can give you more than 2 or 3 instances, no? You find a piece of land where you will build a house. In most of the cases, they'll give you this piece of land to build a house. It happened to my father. It's a long story. I don't want to go there, no? But I've seen these men now, for example, they've grown to the age. They need to get married, or maybe they already married, they were living somewhere. They need to form a family of their own. They want to build a piece of land, a house. This land will be given to them. I've seen it. Now, how do they build a house? I'm touching a little bit about the complexity of African culture now. This land is given to you. The entire community come to help you to build the house. And this is where it becomes a little bit complex, is that every layer of the wall of your house have a name in Esan. And I believe it is like this in every other culture. It have a name because it is significant. The first layer, you have Okoto, meaning the down, the foundation. Then you have something like Inenelere. There are many other ones like that. They have to buy several different layers until you get to the roof of the house. The last one is called Okokun, meaning the last. Each of these layers is built in a day. The people mold the place, the earth that is needed to build a house. They work together. They set it up. The able-bodied men have their own role. The women have their own role, that they need to prepare the food. Nobody is paid. I worked there, I was not paid, but it is the best work that I've done. That I participated in this communal work. So when you are talking within it, okay, there are a lot of, I didn't say about that because of time. When you are talking within this context, it is impossible for you to just run your life on your own because everybody is part of you. So when you have challenges, we deal with it together. In that context, in that society, it is very rare that you talk of single parents. It is very rare. I'm not saying it is impossible to find, but it's very rare that we talk of divorce. It is not something very common. Because when you marry into a family, because we're talking of relationship now, it is not just something between you, the man, and the woman. It is something between your family and the other family. And therefore, between this community and the other community. Now, where is the trick? Is that when you have a problem, it is not your problem. It is a problem of your family and the other family. And when these two families put their head together, they will find a solution. And if it is bigger than them, this community and this community will come together, they will find a problem. So that divorce become rare in a typical Asian society. And I'm very positive that it is like that also in the Igbo traditional society. Okay, now we have grown. But there are a lot of things that we were told are bad about our culture. But you don't want to tell me that is bad. That building together is bad. That is nothing bad about that. We could have taken that along with us as we are growing, if we want to call the life that we are living today growing. So that we take the value, modernize it, and we move into the future. We don't need to destroy it. Because now, what is happening in UK, in New York, in terms of the broken marriage, it's also happening in Nigeria, no? Because we are trying to mimic their way of life. Where, in fact, sometimes we are mimicking the very bad part of European life, implementing it in Africa, we are suffering. And another thing also to our disadvantage is that there is a little bit of antidote that they have to sustain the broken family. Our system doesn't have that antidote, which means there is going to be more suffering among us because we abandon the system. We practice a system that is not our own. We didn't take the antidote. We take only the suffering, and there is going to be more suffering in our place. So I don't know if we could clear this path for us a bit, no?
Okay. Wow. Ah. Uh, well, well explained, I'd say. Okay. So, like I said, I think the problem is we've overcomplicated the whole system. I think what you said in regards to communities coming together to solve the problem and copying some of the bad traits that the Western society has embodied, it needs to be simplified. And what I mean by it needs to be simplified is that humans copied humans that didn't have a result. And on top of that, humans failed to take accountability for their problem. Like, bearing in mind, I said that men are problem fixers. So if you can't solve your problem, then you should go to someone that has a solution to that problem. And it's as simple as, okay, someone needs to get me a pen, right? Go to the person that has a pen, right? Like it's just, and I think that's where we go wrong because when we ask advice to people that didn't have a solution, but found a way to manage that solution in a way that was sustainable for them, but still doesn't bring them to the fact of now saying to them, okay, listen, this is your marriage, sort it out. Talk to your woman, woman, listen to your man, or man, listen to your woman, and woman, talk to your man, and communicate, hear each other out. Okay, what is the dynamic? So I'm a Christian, right? If something's broken, instead of going to communities, how about you go to the Bible? Like the Bible has like everything I teach is in the Bible. For instance, man, serve and love your woman as Christ loved the church. Okay, what does that mean? Jesus was willing to die for the church. So let's talk about, okay, let me think of a common argument. Common argument is maybe the woman doesn't respect the husband, right? That's some of the things I've heard and dealt with. Husband, are you willing to die for her? Or is your pride or is your respect more important than you showing her that you're willing to die for her? Because, and women, are you understanding that that's the person that's meant to guide you, right? But the thing is, again, it's not as black and white because it's subjective, and I completely get that. But the problem here is we are looking at problems that require solutions that are not just A, B, C, D, F. This is not like I can't. This is one thing I don't do. I don't give frameworks, and the reason I don't give frameworks is because your problem will work in this case, but if I give that same solution to somebody else, it won't work because we are two completely different people, and it may be a similar problem, but all I can do is advise you based on what I have seen that's similar to that. I can't tell you what to do. That's completely up to you because that's your life to live. Now, when it comes to, again, copying from the Western society, I think the moment we realize something that I think should be very clear is this: nobody knows what they're doing, not the West. Like when I say nobody, and the reason why I say nobody is because if somebody had known how this was done, they would have a solution that would require them to have zero tweaks, zero improvements. So once you realize that nobody knows what they're doing, but you need to figure it out, you start to now look at the situation sincerely. And that's one of the things that I believe we need to start doing as a community. I don't know what I'm doing. But the thing is, a lot of us act like we do. And that's where the biggest problems start because, okay, if you know what you're doing, why isn't the problem fixed? No, no. Do you know what? Don't leave me in. And it's like, is that snowball effect? And because you're now not being honest with the fact that you don't know what you're doing, you're just carrying this burden that's making everybody else's life difficult. So I think when we now look at the whole scenario situation, the easiest way to look at it is start from you and God. Number one, are you at peace with yourself? Because that's what God said you should do. He said, worry about nothing. Are you worried right now? Okay, so you're ready. So if we go back to the manual that God gave us, is like, think about it this way. The way I look at it is, imagine we're a car. If the car breaks down, we go to the manual to see what's not working, right? But if you're already failing to look at the manual and then you carry on and then you get somebody else that doesn't know what the situation is, but you're still not looking at the manual, then you can now start to see how the cracks are starting to show. So I think number one is take responsibility for the fact that you don't know what to do. Then ask for guidance. And then once you ask for guidance, follow the guidance. And don't follow it with pride. I think pride is what's killing us. Pride is destroying and has destroyed so many relationships. Pride is one of the biggest issues that any culture we're looking at is facing. Pride. You're pretending to know what to do. You don't know what you're doing.
All right. Thank you so much for that. That is important. We don't know it all. That is the name of my name. That is the meaning of my name. Ewanfo. Wow. Ewanfo in Esame. Nobody knows it all. Yeah. I think also this is to the importance of our culture as Africa. That you as an individual cannot solve it all. You need other people. That is why we often say the spirit of Ubuntu. Okay, you would trace that to South Africa, but it's not really South Africa. This is Africa. Because if we go deep, now we're talking of Igbo Umuna before. You know, there is a long distance between the Igbo people and the Bantu. Okay, at the point where all of us meet, no? But the core philosophy is the same, that we are the same people. I think the reason, I'm going back there again, the importance of the community, no? Because that is evident in the life that we live in the diaspora. And of course, we're also transporting that to Africa, no? Where a lot of people are committing suicide. Now, how do you get to the point of committing suicide? You come to the conclusion that there is nothing worth for you living anymore. You can't find a solution. I want us to take a moment to reflect on that. If you think you should know everything, then of course you can come to that conclusion. But what if you could be humble enough to understand that it is not just about you, it's about us. Because as us, we can find a solution to any problem. Us. But as me, there is a limit to where I can go. I might be able to run, but it gets to a point I can't fix it anymore because my strength will fail me. But as a community now, by the time my strength fail me, another one will help me. That is the value of the community. That I am because we are. I am a singular person. We always commit suicide at the point because there are things that are too complicated for my little head to comprehend. What do you think men, because you are concentrating mostly on men, what do you think men should do in order to move toward the solution to that problem? Not only as individual, but putting in context the value of the community. Okay, community, I'm not saying that we need to set up a village here now in London or in Paris. A community are a people. There must be somebody that look like you, who can understand you. You know, life is a very complex thing. When you laugh, somebody should understand what you mean. In my culture, they will say, my grandma will say, she will never tell you not to eat that food. Maybe when you go out now, you know, children, we don't know anything. Maybe somebody's offering you a food. All you need from your mother is a look on her face. That is enough. That tells you whether to eat the food or not to eat the food. The food might not be poisonous, but these are very delicate psychological and emotional intelligence that is happening here. You are being taught how to behave. And this doesn't happen just by verbal communication, merely by looking. You understand the code that is transmitted to you, you decode it, you get the information. So it is important that we look for other people like us that understand us, so that I look into your face, you know what I mean. So I'm talking of that as a community, people that you can confide on to solve the problem. How do we navigate that in the diaspora? What do you recommend?
So here's what I done, and I think what I done was I had that similar issue. I think you mentioned earlier in regards to suicidal thoughts and depression. I witnessed all of that. I was in a dark space, and the reason why I was able to admit that pride was my biggest problem is because pride was what almost got me killed. I didn't want to speak to my parents. I was the firstborn, and they shouldn't know that I'm struggling, right? I didn't want to speak to my sister. She's my little sister. I have to protect her. And I had to come to the conclusion that I have to be there for myself. I have to save myself, right? But before I got to that conclusion, I had to look inside of me and look at my inner child. And that inner child was the guy that was crying out this whole time, saying, "No one's there for me. Help me." And like you said, I think one of the things that saved me was looking at that inner child and saying to him, "I'm going to protect you. And I'm going to make sure that everything you wish you had growing up is everything I'm going to give you." Okay. So, number one, to make it simple again, is you're not as old as you think you are. And I think you'll still enjoy from yourself. Remember, you act as old as you are. I think some of the elderly guys that I find that are full of life are the people that are so youthful. I don't care how old you are. I don't care how old I get. I'm going to act as young as I need to be. Yes, I'll be one of the youngest people in there. Yeah, what's up, man? What's going on? You know, like when I'm speaking to my brother and I see his friends. Yeah, he's 16, but so what? So what? I'm right there with you guys, man. I'm still a child. Even when my little one comes around, I'm a kid. Being hell gonna be playing around. I'm gonna googa gaga. I'm a child, right? And I think there's actual scientific proof behind the fact that when you allow yourself to feel childish again, or just feel like a child, the inner child, just keep that. It gives you joy, it gives you peace, and not just that, but it allows you to thrive. And oh my gosh, life is so exciting because you're a child. That when you look at children and how they wake up every morning, and then you look at adult, oh my gosh, I have to go to work. The people that are thriving in life are the people that are doing exactly what the children do, right? So copy the children. But in terms of the community, right, what I would say is we need to start talking. We need to have, we need to be able to be, I think this is what I teach. I teach emotional navigation. And what does that entail? It means when you're angry, you're not going to shout at your wife. You're not going to throw stuff at the pram. You're not going to bang your car. No, you're going to use that anger to create something, whether it's write a novel, write a journal, or pick up a business or a passion, and or paint. With I think some of the if you study some of the greats like Mozart, what's his name again? No, not Beethoven. I think definitely Mozart. A lot of these guys, Robert Greene, he's an author that talks about. He's like very big on human psychology. Every single time he got angry, he started writing, and some of the greatest books that he's ever written came out of that angle. So I think it's about repurposing your emotions. I think that's probably one of the biggest issues that nobody has taught us. Because my dad didn't teach me this. I had to go out and learn it myself. And I learned it through my mistakes, but I also learned it through people that were happy to share. This is what I did in order to overcome anger. So I think if we now simplify the issues and say, okay, cool, this is the problem I have. I am dealing with anger, or I don't know how to deal with anger. What does me fixing the problem look like? So let's actually problems and simplifying and making it clear that this is what the issue is. Because I think once you simplify, you clarify and take action, it's going to be very hard for you to deal with the same struggles. But I think we overcomplicate things because we're adults. We think that life is this complicated thing. It's as easy as you make it sometimes. And I'm not saying it's easy because it's not easy. Like it's far from easy, boy. But you already know how hard it is. Just make it easier on yourself. Be kind. Be alive. Your wife is angry. Just say, honey, it's okay. Don't be angry all the time. Oh, turn into a child again. Oh, what is it? When women and their periods and you have emotional stuff, don't respond back and say, why are you shouting at me? No, just say, is it the period again? Right? Just little things like that. Just keep it lively. Just keep the energy. Just control the energy. Control the temperature of the room. Now, going back to the community, sorry, we're going to get to the community. I think what we need is a community of men that can go there and say, I don't know what I'm doing. And do you have the results to show that or what did you do to overcome this? And if we have the ability to do that and just disregard the pride that comes behind it, we can actually fix things. And I think if you look at some of the greatest people that have achieved major things, a lot of them started off by just saying, I don't know if I'm going to be able to pull through this. Like a lot of them started from a very, very humble and crappy beginning. So you're not alone. Just be honest about your situation and, understand that it's okay to be vulnerable. Just learn how to navigate it, because what it also teaches, you don't want to be weak. You want to be strong. But in order for you to be strong, you need to know how to be weak, because you can't, it's a thing where if you just are strong and don't know what it's like to be weak, then you're not going to be able to guide people into being strong. So there's that transition, again, emotional navigation.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate this conversation. It really have been full of value here. Just briefly, tell people how they can reach you. Be very brief on that.
Yes. So I'm on LinkedIn, Dole Chigborogu. You're probably going to see me as the keynote speaker. And on YouTube, Dole C. And then Instagram, Dole C again.
Thank you, Dole. It has been a pleasure talking with you. There will be a lot of value here. Thank you very much, brother.
Yes, thank you, sir.